All right, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to EMPM. You know, EMPM stands for Engineering Major Philosophy Minor, and this is the channel where you can get a working aerospace engineer's opinions on topics pertaining to engineering, philosophy, politics, and various other social and cultural issues. And last night, I had a really good time filming me playing some city skylines and just talking in the background. I'm gonna try and coin a new term. Actually, I don't know if it's an existing term or not. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I'm gonna call this vodcasting or video podcasting. I know that might sound kind of dumb to people, but for some reason I just thought it had some kind of a ring to it because it's not really a podcast because there's visual stuff going on here. It's really a video cast, but vidcast, I don't know. I think vodcast sounds a little bit better than that, so we're going to go with that, and you guys can tell me if that's already a thing, and I just haven't learned it yet. Anyway, so the other night, or last night really, we worked on building this freeway connection here. It goes from basically near the downtown entrance all the way kind of through this oil industry right here and goes on into the rail terminal. And the reason why that freeway was kind of necessary was a couple of reasons. First off, this area right here was suffering a lot of traffic. And that was because for a long time this roundabout right here, or wasn't always a roundabout, but it was the only way for the oil trucks to get to this rail terminal over here, and they had to take a really long and serpentine path in order to get there. So this freeway was built, and it used to be a small freeway, but then really it needed to be upgraded to just this kind of double freeway so that people could get from downtown over to here, or people could get from here to downtown, and also it would create a direct freight route over here. So that's what we worked on in the last episode. And what we're going to work on in this episode is, first off, I have decided that I am going to make another freeway junction along here coming off this roundabout, but that's not the first thing that we're going to do. Let me just slow down for a second. So the reason I'm going to put that in is because I realized, if you watched all the way to the end of my hour-long, what's the word for it? I don't know, just my incredibly lengthy video, I discovered that if you're coming from the rail terminal and you want to get back to the oil industry, probably the best route to take, again, is still going to be going around this freeway here, or is going to be coming into town here and then going through this neighborhood or going around through this neighborhood to get back to the refinery. And that's not really a desirable movement. It would be nice to keep, some of these freight vehicles on the freeway, but still give them an efficient path. So I think if another freeway connection is made right here, then vehicles will just load directly onto the freeway from the freight. This main thoroughfare or freeway right here, or arterial, which is what the city planners call it, apparently, according to City Planner Plays. This arterial, which is also a freeway, will only be loaded by, just kind of regular traffic. But that being said, the first thing I want to do is, as you can see, this roundabout has just a ton of other uses that are kind of going through it. And just to talk about the aesthetics of that for a second, you can see all these pedestrians here too, crossing the street and creating traffic. But I actually, personally, for some reason, I just don't find roundabouts that attractive. But in terms of game mechanics and also in terms of, actual traffic efficiency in real life, they're actually, really, really good for efficient traffic flow. I just don't think they look that nice. And so whenever I get a roundabout, I really like to try and make it look just kind of unique and interesting. So here, what I like about this one is we've got several different kind of modes of transportation going through it. Obviously, there's a pedestrian path right here, which is what I'm going to connect up in a second. You know, there's trolley going through it, there's a main freeway going over the top of it, and there's a monorail coming through it in kind of this bi-directional fashion. Well, there's a bike path, but that's not really going through the roundabout, so that doesn't count. But anyway, there is one thing I noticed about this roundabout, which is that, again, I have signalized intersections here, and we do not want those in a roundabout because really the way the roundabout is supposed to work is it's supposed to be a yield kind of movement at every junction. That way traffic can kind of smoothly flow in. You don't get, you know, kind of these spurts of traffic like you do with a signalized intersection, so we'll get rid of those. And now I want to connect up this pedestrian path right here. You can see it kind of goes through here in a weird way. Originally it just kind of went straight from this location that you're looking at right in front of you to the other side, which is right here. But as you can see, we've got these pillars that are in the way, and the game is not going to let us do anything with that unless we work around them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get started here, making some modifications to this path. And I just want to make sure that I can go under here. Okay. Yeah, so that's going to work. I wonder if I turn on grid and go like this. So I want to follow the curvature of the road. Well, do I want to do that? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe something starting from here. I'm getting all flustered. But anyway, so, you know, in the spirit of this new thing called vodcasting, obviously I'm going to be working on this, but... Oh, see, now it doesn't want to go. If I start from here... see, that'll go under. Let's do that. So this is going to look pretty unique for sure, to say the least. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about a little bit in here in this video, there's a couple things that have been happening that, you know, are pretty alarming in current events, but to just get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about why I haven't put out a video in a pretty long time, and there's a few reasons for that. Some of them are more simple, and then some of them are a little bit more complex. So, oh, all right, we got that pedestrian connection through there, and that looks kind of wild and crazy going through there. I think what I want to do is clean that up a little bit. So we'll back this off. Okay, so how it comes in from here, and it actually looks good from that regard, but what I want to do is adjust it coming around here. So let's talk about a little bit about why I haven't built a video in a while. And I'll start off with what are you know, maybe the more simplistic or less convoluted. Ooh, look at that! I just upgraded to a megalopolis. So now I have another 2 by 2 kilometers square, and I can have airports and all this other good stuff, and I get a little bump in money. Anyway, so the first reason that I haven't produced a video in a little bit is because you know, so I also, you know, originally when I started doing YouTube, it was a fitness channel, and I've mentioned that in, you know, some of my other videos on this channel, and you can check that out. It's called Alex Trains Chest, and I had, you know, a lot of fun making those fitness videos, and I still would like to make fitness videos, but if you watch that channel, I don't like that. If you watch that channel, what you would discover is that I injured my back. It's been, you know, basically 2 years at this point since it's been injured. It still bothers me a little bit, but one of the things that resulted from this back injury is that I could not sit down for very long periods of time, and you know, if it weren't for having a standing desk at my jobs, that I've had in that time period, I probably would have had to go on disability. So what happened is I definitely herniated a disc pretty bad. I was getting very bad sciatic nerve pain. It was pushing on the sciatic nerve, and I'm sure a lot of you have, heard of sciatica. Maybe it happened to you yourself. I really hope it didn't happen to you yourself, but it's a pretty common thing. And one thing that's really interesting about sciatica is, actually, apparently, and this is according to doctors and research that I've done online, apparently sciatic or having like a bulging disc or a herniated disc is actually a pretty common thing for people to go through, but a lot of people don't experience pain, which I think is really interesting. So it's like you have a bulging disc, but the disc itself doesn't actually have any nerves in it. It's actually when it presses on nerves in the area that it becomes an issue. Yeah, so unfortunately, I happen to be one of those people who the bulging disc or the herniated disc or whatever is actually pressing on my nerve, and so it bothered me. And I, when I first injured it, I could, really only sit down for, I don't know, probably like a maximum of 10 minutes, and it would just get excruciatingly painful and basically unbearable. And as a result of that, I couldn't sit down and I couldn't edit videos for long periods of time. And I did, put out a few videos in that time period. Some of them were, like hiking videos and stuff like that. Okay, now I'm going to have to pause this because I'm going to have to back off this trolley line for a minute so that I can get this intersection figured out. So I just couldn't sit down for a very long period of time, and so I couldn't do any editing, and obviously I couldn't do any, not really any intensive workouts or anything like that. Actually, what I want to do is do something like this. With this game, what you find is you really got to do a lot of guide road type stuff. Otherwise, it's gonna mess with you. So I want this road to be a little bit elevated. And right now, I'm just using dirt roads, and I'll upgrade them later. But it needs to be elevated a little bit because I don't want to. Again, I want to conserve nature and not disrupt this, this geologic feature. So anyway, I couldn't really do a lot. I was pretty mentally discouraged, and I wasn't able to work out, and it came down to the mental aspect of it, and also just the physical, not being able to sit down. I just couldn't make videos. So that's probably the more simple thing. It's like, okay, you got an injury, what are you gonna do? But then the other thing is, of course, I think what we're dealing with now with kind of like YouTube censorship and stuff like that is, there's just certain things that you can't say. People have been losing their jobs over talking politics, or politics-related things. That's really unfortunate, and honestly, I'm not really proud of this response. I'd like to say, I'm somebody who, wants to stand up for what they believe in, and wants to believe in something, really. And I was looking for new jobs because I was trying to get out of California. And for a while, I just thought, if I say something, that's maybe just like politically undesirable, this could jeopardize my chances of, really being able to leave the state of California and getting a new job, or it could or it could have consequences for the job that I was at already. And, it's just a bummer to have to, kind of self-censor and look at it that way. That that you could have, an individual, I mean, not just me, that you could have, social consequences basically for simply, just for simple speech, basically. And if you read the Gulag Archipelago, this is one of the big reasons why I encourage everybody to read the Gulag Archipelago, because, this is exactly how, kind of the mass subjugation of people started in the Soviet Union, was speech censorship, and kind of this idea that, undesirable political speech could be a major threat to the state. Now, of course, what the state would tell people is that the political threat isn't to the state, it's to you. It's to you as a person. You as a person could be in, grave danger as a result of some of these ideas. It's gonna, completely upend your livelihood if, people are simply able to, do something as innocuous as tell the truth about what's happening in the, what's happening with like the 5-year plans and stuff like that in the Soviet Union. Or, I mean, hell, I mean, I can't remember if I've read this portion of the book yet, but, you could get arrested for just turning off the radio when Stalin was giving an announcement, and just, when you think about that, it's like, oh, that can never happen in America, right? Like, we believe in freedom and all this stuff, and it's like, well, how does it happen? That's one thing you ought to think about. How does it happen? Because if you really think about it, it's not just the government. The government by itself actually can't easily do that. Because let's say that the government wants to do that, but then a majority of the population disagrees and is armed and, is willing to essentially, and, before people freak out, I'm not saying that this should happen or that I want this to happen, but, we're using this as a hypothetical, right? If the population is well armed and the government wants to come in and try to do some of this stuff, they can't, right? Unless they literally want, mass armed conflict in the street, which, the government typically isn't going to want, especially if its military, may not necessarily be on the side of, on their side, essentially, right? So what you need more than the government is you actually need people. You actually need everyday people to believe in stuff like this and go along with stuff like this, or be kind of, what's the right word? Hang on a second. To be willingly ignorant to what's going on, And to give you guys an example of this, actually, I wasn't expecting this to kind of transition. I wasn't expecting the discussion to kind of transition into this, but it kind of is flowing well at this moment. Let's talk about, how the Biden administration allegedly is looking to ration, medical supplies basically to states that maybe don't share the same philosophy on handling, the COVID pandemic as they do. The government can just say that, right? But, you know, what it really depends on, more so than the government, it's not just the government. It depends on the company actually refusing the shipments too. You know, it depends on the people actually packing up the goods and, you know, the people who are driving them to actually drive them to the place that is requested by the company. Now, the reason why it gets so complicated is because there's a combination of decisions that happen where people people are knowingly doing something with malintent, and where people are not doing something knowingly, but the end result is malicious. So, you know, take for example the truck driver. So what happens is, you know, an order comes in from Florida, and it says I need 50 units of such and such medication, right? Well, by the time that, you know, that actual 50 units gets loaded up onto a truck, you know, all the truck driver sees is 50 units going to Illinois. You know, like he doesn't know that, and I'm just making up states as an example. I mean, Florida is kind of the butt of this right now, but, you know, Illinois, nothing against people from Illinois, just pulling a state out of my hat. Let's say Utah because it's the state that I live in. So all the truck driver sees is, you know, 50 units going to Utah. And, you know, the truck driver doesn't know that he could be complicit in, or she, you know, could be complicit in denying people medical supplies. All they see is, okay, I'm taking a shipment to Utah. But then, so now let's take that decision back a couple things. So the order comes in. Now, who processes the order? Well, somebody processes the order and says, okay, you know, Florida is requesting this. But then there is somebody who is either going to confirm or deny that order. And the rationale that they are given, or that they will give to confirm or deny that order, is based on the rules. And the rules are set up, you know, in this case by Joe Biden, basically. So that person, though, isn't just a robot, right? It's not just like, well, in some cases the order processing may be a robot, but so then somebody has to program the robot. So at one point or another, somewhere in the chain, I am not liking how this is looking, by the way. I'm struggling with this right now. I think what might be better is to guarantee that I can get over the freeway first from here, maybe. Let's see, how far do I have to go up? Hang on. Okay, that goes over. Okay, that actually goes over too. So that's, I think it's 3. Let's get rid of this for a second. Let's try to do 1, 2, 3 from here. Goes over, and that is, I think, about 2 from here. So if I come like this, I go up 1, 2, and just go over. Yeah, okay, that'll make it over. That's good. All right, so where were we? So, you know, someone or some computer has to confirm or deny the order. And you know, if it's not somebody physically confirming the order, you know, like looking at the paperwork and saying okay, and saying this stuff has to go into a box, you know, somebody has to program the computer, and somebody's going to have to program the computer to say, essentially, whether or not a certain state gets confirmed or denied on this stuff. And that is a human decision. Now, do you think that a person who agrees, you know, with all these, you know, vaccine mandates and, sorry, I'm just inspecting this. Do you think that a person who agrees with all these vaccine mandates is going to say, no, I'm not going to put in that order? You know, if they really believe the if they really believe the, you know, the orthodoxy of, you know, let's just say the Biden administration, you know, no, right? I mean, they're just going to follow the rules. And so you might say, you might ask yourself, you know, well, okay, is that negligence, you know, or is that malintent? So anyway, the reason why I talk about that is because it's a tough decision, right? It's hard to say whether or not that's negligence or malintent, but that is the exact kind of stuff that happened in the Soviet Union and in Nazi Germany and in Maoist China. You know, in all these places, that's exactly what happened. Is there has to be a certain percentage, and it doesn't have to be a huge percentage. It just has to be an important percentage, right, of people who are complicit, are willing to be complicit in this stuff, and then, you know, claim ignorance when it really comes down to, you know, who's taking the responsibility for what just happened. So, you know, you guys ought to think about that, because, you know, a lot of people love to say, oh, this and that couldn't happen here and whatever. But am I doing this wrong? Oh, I may have sent this the wrong way. Because this is the in. The in has to meet up with here. And if it was an out, it has to go out this way or out around here. Whoops. Well, that was a big waste of time. Sorry about that. I was getting confused. Yeah, so there needs to be a certain percentage of the population that is willing to be complicit in this. And, you know, unfortunately, when you see news reports of, you know, certain medical institutions or, you know, doctors or whoever, you know, openly saying that they're going to refuse medical treatment to certain people for certain reasons, you know, it's just really easy to see, based on stuff like that, how some of these totalitarian systems develop, and how they turn into, how they devolve into, you know, basically violence, or, you know, they result in, you know, tragically, you know, mass death. I mean, I know that sounds really extreme, but if you just think about it for long enough, but not only that, if you try to literally put yourself, you know, really try to think hard, and put yourself into the perspective of someone else, you know, and somebody who may have that position. I mean, I'll try to give you an example of just like myself. So if I'm sitting thinking to myself, and let's say, you know, I'm gonna try and think to myself that I really believe that, you know, somebody who's not wearing a mask or somebody who's not willing to get vaccinated, it's not them making their own personal choice. It's actually that they are out to get me. It's that they want me to suffer. If you know, so let's pretend that premise is true. Well, then it becomes very easy, very, very, very easy, to say to yourself, oh, well, of course I'm not going to let someone who's trying to kill me, you know, live comfortably on their own. You know, of course not, right? I mean, it's like when you start kind of thinking along those lines, hang on a second, let's do this. It's like it unfortunately becomes, There we go. It unfortunately becomes apparent how easy it is to just kind of start thinking yourself into this like authoritarian mindset, you know? And then you start thinking, well, you know, something like that should be against the law, right? You know, it's like, okay, so let's work with that premise, you know, it should be against the law. Well, if it should be against the law, then someone should get punished. You know, someone should be punished for you know, not complying with this or that thing. And it's like, well, you know, why does this look so nasty? I guess because the road is not really perfectly smooth there, so I think I'm gonna have to do something like this. Oh, that looks like trash too. Come on, man. Come on, man. Joe Biden. Yeah, so, you know, it's like, okay, well, someone's breaking the law. Well, people who break the law get punished, right? I really just hate what this is doing with the soil here. Sorry guys, just like blanking out here trying to figure out how to make this look a little bit better at your expense, at your viewing expense. So yeah, you can imagine, you know, someone saying to themselves, well, you know, these people should be punished. It's like, well, how are we going to punish them? You know, it's like, well, you know, I don't have enough soil, huh? It's like, well, you know, the police might not be willing to do anything. So, you know, we need to take matters into our own hands. I'm like, oh, well, dang, you know, how are we going to do that? How are we going to take matters into our own hands? Oh, well, you know, what could happen is, you know, we could just mandate that where these people work and, you know, what these things that these people want to do, you know, in their day-to-day lives, like they're not able to do it. And if they're not able to do it, then, you know, they'll come to their senses, you know, and they'll think like, oh, if we just do this one thing, then we can live our lives normally, right? But that's never enough. So, you know, then you get this idea like, oh yeah, that's how we're going to punish them. You know, that's how we're going to get them is, you know, we're just going to stop them from being able to, you know, to live just kind of like a normal life. But then, you know, what happens is, okay, you know, so the individual person thinks that about their neighbor. And then they go to punish their neighbor. But see, what does the government do? The government's going to say, oh, well, that's, you know, that's actually a threat to the state. It's actually a threat to the sovereignty and the spirit of the nation. And we're not just going to, you know, we're not just going to let you lose your job. You're going to prison. And we're going to, you know, we need to figure out, though, whether or not it's just you. We need to figure out whether or not you have accomplices, you know, other people working with you. So I'll tell you what, you know, you inform on a couple other people, you know, that have been working with you, and maybe we'll give you a better deal. And then, of course, what actually happens is you inform and you follow all the rules and, you know, you send your friends to prison too, but then all of you are in prison. Okay, so I know I'm getting a little bit extreme with that. I'm getting a little bit into exactly what happened in the Soviet Union. But that being said, you know, you guys really ought to think about it. You know, how does it happen? You know, how did stuff like that happen? And I'll tell you how it happened. It starts with average everyday people not being able to trust each other, believing that each other are all evil, that, you know, one giant group of people is out to get you. And, you know, the state, though, as long as you're on the side of the state, you're on the, you know, you're on the right track. And that's unfortunately what I think, you know, people are getting convinced of right now. People are getting convinced that me making this YouTube video, you know, I'm a conservative and I'm actually a threat, you know, a major threat to people's lives. And it's just not true. You know, I just want to be left alone. But yeah, you know, it's just important to think about. It's important to think about too, you as an individual, you know, how far are you willing to go? You know, so hang on, I want to continue talking about that, but I want to consider if I want to have freeway junctions coming from the opposite side in here, and then this coming out to meet up with the freeway here. And the problem is that I don't really have enough space to do that, I don't think, without it looking kind of incredibly ugly. Let's, like if I try to bring a thing off here, yeah, no, it just doesn't look good with this. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like how that would work. You know, originally this was just supposed to be for trucks to return from the freight terminal and get directly into here. Not really for just random traffic coming through here. So I think that this is, I'm going to leave this as is. Maybe worth some thought as to whether or not I want to add some extra junctions in here, but I don't want this to look too crowded, and I don't want to add movements that aren't necessary, because adding movements that aren't necessary it's just going to make it look crowded, and it's not really going to serve any benefit. So we'll just kind of let that go for now, and we'll update this trolley line here too. So let's go back to what I was talking about just a second ago. Okay, that's not tall enough. Oh. So yeah, it's not just a matter of, you know, it's not just a matter of government enforcement. You know, you actually need a population that's willing to go along with it. You know, that really believes in it. That's important. And unfortunately, I think that, you know, one of the ways that you get people to believe in this stuff is by making them fear, you know, keeping them in constant fear. Oh. Stop needs to get moved to there. This one to there. There we go. So the purple and the green line are working. We now have this freeway connection here. Just double check to make sure that there's not any signalized intersections there, which there are not. Okay, cool. So I think that this is good for this freeway right here. And now the last thing I'm going to work on is adding back in some kind of geologic features, some rocks in these areas to make this just look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. If you remember from the last episode, I had to delete out some rocks, which was somewhat unfortunate. So I'm going to find some nice rocks to put here. Unfortunately, I can't get them too close to the road. Maybe that one. Yeah, I think that's the same rock pattern as was there. Let's try like one of these. Yeah, this looks nice. So yeah, when you think about all that stuff in the context of, the people, trying to refuse medical treatment, and now, the president, basically, using the government, to, restrict supply. It's a little bit, it makes people a little bit nervous, and I hope that talk right there can help you understand why it makes people nervous. Now we need some rocks over here. Where are we here? Here we go. What does this one look like? Oh, that's way too big. Maybe something like this. Get it nestled in here. Oh, good. And that has like moss and stuff around it as well. So maybe this rock. Go there like that. Maybe this is like okay. Ooh, I like how that sticks up like right by the road right here. That actually looks pretty cool. No, this is going to cover up too much. I actually think that is acceptable right here, just kind of covering up this this water outlet. So, see here, the video is now 42 minutes long. That was probably a lot of rambling, but probably going to go ahead and end the video here and maybe start prepping for the next one. But yeah, I think those are important things to think about. The first of which is being, it's a bummer when you have to self-censor. Oh, and look, you can see all these freight trucks are now using this to get back from the rail station, which is what was intended. And it looks like a lot of trucks are also going this way and using this ramp over here. And a lot of this backup is because these trips by these trucks, from the freight back here were being made before this connection was possible. And so there's, it's going to take a little bit for it to kind of resolve itself. But anyway, those are things to think about, when you start considering that, maybe you have to censor yourself a little bit and you're not allowed to speak, and certain things can get you fired and certain things can't. And then, everyone is starting to be suspicious of one another and, really believe that their fellow Americans are like a direct threat to their lives. And so they start getting very guarded, and again, suspicious. And, you start, a person will start living in this state of fear where they think, that the state is the only thing that can protect them, and they have to appeal to the state when they feel like there has been some violation. And, the problem is the state is going to treat you the same as it treats everybody else. And somebody can always make an allegation against you, and when it's guilty until proven innocent, that's the opposite of what we do in America. But not only that, the guilty gets punished before they're proven innocent. This is kind of the stuff that happened in the Soviet Union. So it's important to think about that. And I think an idea that I left kind of incomplete is the idea of, you need to think for yourself how far you're willing to go. Are you going to start informing on your neighbors? Or are you going to be the one who, files the report that sends someone off to the gulag? Are you going to be the one who refuses to sign the order for medical supplies? Or are you going to be the driver that willingly diverts a route away from somewhere that needs it? And look, I do pray every night. I have become a lot more religious over the last, I would say 3 or 4 years than I ever have been in my life. And these are the things I pray that our country will figure out, because You know, if you're going to be the kind of person, I mean, imagine this, you know, imagine if Don Lemon got on CNN, right? And he was like, you know, we found this new treatment for, you know, COVID, you know, and specifically it's going to be for people who aren't vaccinated. And, you know, all they have to do is they have to go to this one location where we have these special facilities built that, you know, people are going to get treated. You know, people are going to get nice and treated, and, you know, maybe it's the special type of gas, and we're going to call it, you know, the sanitizing gas. And all you have to do is, you know, all they have to do is get on these rail cars and go to this location, and then en masse, you know, they'll all be inoculated with this gas, and everything will work out. And then, you know, if people start dying from the gas, that never gets reported. You know, I mean, what does that sound like to you guys? And it's like, are you going to be the one who closes the door on the rail car? You know, or are you going to be the one who, you know, your relative or your friend, you know, doesn't have a vaccine, and so you're going to offer them up for this treatment? You're going to tell the government where they're at? Like, I mean, I know a lot of this stuff sounds extreme and conspiracy theory, but I mean, think about it, because it's happened before. It's happened before. It's happened many, many times before in many different countries. And unfortunately, we don't learn too much about it. We don't learn enough about it. So anyway, that said, guys, we completed this freeway connection, and maybe the next video is just going to be more talking about the city, or maybe doing some like landscaping around here and stuff, and just chit-chatting. Hopefully I didn't say anything on here that YouTube is going to go crazy over, or anything like that. And of course, you know, if you guys have a comment, you know, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate for some of the stuff that I said, and that's okay. But I hope that, you know, also, you know, for every comment that is negative, I hope that there's a positive person in there who, and it doesn't have to be positive in the sense of agreeing with me, but maybe it's positive in the sense of like, oh yeah, you know, that actually kind of made me think, and maybe I ought to like rethink, you know, this thing. Or, you know, as long as it makes you think or makes you consider, I consider that a positive, even if you come out of it, you know, just completely disagreeing. And again, you know, I hope you guys like, you know, the gameplay here, the vodcasting. You guys can get, you know, if you don't like the talking, you know, you just put it on mute and just kind of watch the the city come to life here. So that said, I'm going to hop off, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.